Galloway's presents Tech Talk at 3 with Andrew and Tim from Deafblind UK.
So welcome everybody. Welcome everybody to Tech Talk at 3. It's Andrew here from Galloway's, and welcome. We're really pleased today to be joined by Tim Locke and Andrew Barnes from Deafblind UK. Welcome, guys.
Morning. Oh, afternoon, rather. Sorry.
How are you doing? Excellent. It's great to have you with us today to come and talk to us about the support that you offer and advice from Deafblind UK, as it's often something that can come in hand when we talk about visual impairment. Sometimes we lose the emphasis sometimes on people that may have hearing difficulties. So it's great that you've come on today to talk about the support that's available and just give some advice as well around products and things like that. So I'm gonna mute myself and I'll hand it over. I think I'll hand it over to you, Tim and Andrew.
Thank you very much for that very kind introduction there, Andrew. That's fantastic. And thank you, everybody, for allowing us to come today and just give a little brief talk on a little bit about us, about what we do, about our organisation, how we perhaps have to shape some of our services recently to cope with the unfortunate COVID situation and the challenge that we're still facing, and also just talk a little bit around perhaps some of the common types of queries that we might get on a couple of our significant services at the moment, which is a digital service that we offer, particularly around perhaps some hearing side of equipment. Because in conversation with Andrew, as he was just saying, actually, it's particularly where organisations might concentrate on the vision side. Sometimes the hearing side gets a little bit overlooked, but of course we come from both angles. So my name is Tim Locke. I'm a digital inclusion sort of officer, manager, really overlooking our digital project. And I've got with me today my colleague Andrew, who has just been retitled to something very, very significant, which I always manage to forget. But I think it's a networking and community officer champion, isn't it, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm the jack of all trades at the moment. I'm doing about 4 different roles in the organisation. So I'm the network officer, networking with other organisations, sharing information, things like that, partnership work and that kind of thing. I also do a lot around deafblind awareness, so going to at the moment over Zoom, doing sessions with organisations to raise awareness around deafblindness and the impact that it can have, and what support they can and adjustment they can do to improve the quality of their services. I'm also running the British Sign Language social group that we have at Deafblind UK as well. And last but not least, I'm also doing a lot of work with the digital inclusion, specifically looking more at hearing equipment for deafblind individuals, just because it's a sort of smaller range of equipment out there for that group of people, but we'll look into that in a minute.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, I mean, as Andrew sort of has mentioned there, he covers quite a lot of hats at the moment, and that is actually a result of the reshaping of our services, which has happened over the last 9 to 12 months because of the situation that we find ourselves in. So he's pretty well versed on a lot of these areas, and he's helping me out with the technology side as it stands as well, which is fantastic. So Deafblind UK, we're an organisation that's actually been going since 1928, and we support, essentially our membership is dual sensory loss, so we support both those who have a degree of vision loss and a degree of hearing loss combined. Now, as Andrew sort of mentioned, he one of the things that he does is he really raises the profile of our organisation and raises the profile of deafblinders in the community as well, and obviously he's doing that through the virtual platforms at the moment, like today. So I'm going to hand over to him, and he's perhaps if you can, Andrew, if it's okay, just give a little bit of a rundown of the current services that we offer, and perhaps just an outline at the end of how people might be able to refer into those services, which we can give information out at the end as well.
Yeah, no, definitely sounds like a good idea. So yeah, so as Tim said, we've been running, sorry, since 1928, and we provide quite a lot of services over that time. The bigger services that we're running at the moment, even before COVID and now, is the befriending service. That's the biggest service that we're running at the moment. It's open to all of our members, and basically we can match them up with either another deafblind individual, or with volunteers that we can recruit, and they can befriend. This can be over telephone, it can be text messages, or it can be email. And I think we may have 1 or 2 pen pals at the moment, but I'll check on that. We used to do the home befriending style of the befriending role, but that's obviously been suspended at the moment because of COVID, so it's not safe to do that. But we are hoping to go back to that after COVID. So we've got the befriending service. We're also running a variety of virtual social groups. So we've got a couple of telephone social groups for our members, and we have a couple of video call groups, and of course there's the video call group for the BSL users as well. I'll come back on this later because it's sort of relevant to what I'm going to talk about later in the technology section. We also have the helpline, which is available to absolutely anyone who has any questions about deafblindness, whether it's our members, volunteers, professionals, friends, family members, or just anyone really who wants to ask a question. That's available on 0800 132 320. We'll send that information out again at the end. And that's open Monday till Thursday 9 till 5, and then 9 till 4 on a Friday. And you can also email us as well at info@deafblind.org.uk. What we've always done, if we've done a wellbeing service, which was originally it was a contact, whether it was by phone or letter, once every 6 months. As a result of COVID, that has now changed to a contact once every 3 months, as there was a need for us to keep more in regular contact with some of our members. So that's been one of the changes that we've had. We've also launched a 6-week emotional support service. So it's not counselling, but it's if someone's having a sort of distressing time, or they're having to deal with some emotions and they're just not sure how to cope, they can get in touch with us and they can talk to one of our trained members of staff over a 6-week period to help them overcome what the issue that's happening at that moment, and maybe refer them on to other services afterwards. Or it might be that they need a befriender, or it might just be that they just needed that 6-week regular contact with someone to get over that issue that they were having at that time. So that's come about sort of partly due to COVID, and also partly due to something that we were going to be launching anyway. We also do birthday cards, Christmas cards, birthday phone calls, and things like that to keep in touch with our members, things like that. We also produce an open hand magazine, which is available in any format. So you can have it in sort of large print, extra large print, audio CD, have it sent to you in different formats via email, and braille. And that magazine has been running since 1929. It's obviously had a few name changes over the period, but it has been running since 1929. It was considered such an important document during the Second World War that it was exempt from the paper rationing that was in place at the time. So that's how important that document was considered. It's still going strong today. Loads of useful information in there, a bit about technology that Tim inputs every 3 weeks, every 3 months, sorry, and life stories, hints and tips, anything you can think of is in that magazine. and that's produced every 3 months to all of our members. And I think we send out about 3,000 copies of that in different formats. We also do a lot of sort of empowering work or case work, as you might know it, just supporting members with individual issues that they have at that time, and so forth. And obviously technology, which we'll now go into. So giving you a brief overview of the other services that we provide, and there are one or two, but I'll save those for another time. So technology. A lot of the recent inquiries that we've had from members and from other organisations is, as a result of everything going online or over the telephone, they feel that they've lost contact with certain members because they've not been able to access those services over the telephone or through Zoom or whatever video platform they're using. And this because they cannot manage on a telephone. So a bit of an interesting fact, you actually start losing your hearing from sort of the age of 15 to 18 years old. So everyone over a certain age will have some form of hearing loss, but it will impact people differently and in different ways. And this is one of the key things that we need to be understood, is the fact that it can impact people in different ways. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about some of the technology. I've got a little table next to me with some of these equipment on, and I'm just going to sort of talk you through some of these things. I'm going to use the example of the social groups. So you remember before that I spoke, I mentioned that we have telephone social groups and video social groups. So the reason we've done that is that there are a lot of our members can, even though they've got some form of hearing loss, they can manage on the telephone. So they're able to partake in the social groups. But one of the things that we can do to make it a bit easier for them is to ensure that we are contacting them over a phone that works for them, whether it's a landline or a mobile. We tend to say that a landline phone is better because there's better connectivity and it's not reliant on signal, but a lot of our members find that mobile phones are a lot more accessible. So that's one of the things that we do to make sure that we know which technology works for them, but also we manage the size of the group. So our social groups are no bigger than 6 people. And this means that it allows everyone to partake as much as they would like to, and there's not too many people talking at once and things like that. There's a set rule to these groups and how they work so that everyone can listen to one person at a time, and there's no overlapping voices and things like that. The video group, which use Zoom, is there to support it if people are lip reading as well as listening. So they can read the lips of the people that they're communicating with as well, or listening to. And so that's another thing that we've put in place. And obviously, of course, British Sign Language is a visual language, so that needs to be done over a webcam as well. So that's why we've got the video BSL group as well. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the sort of telephone. This is often one of the common queries that we get in, is what telephones are out there that are accessible.
Can I just interject there, Andrew, as well? Sorry, it's fantastic. Just to say that absolutely, a lot of this technology that we've got here, isn't it? It's based on quite a lot of the common queries that we have found that we're getting increasingly more over the last sort of, year or so, as like we're handling more queries from a technical nature because we're interfacing and talking to so many more members.
Yeah, definitely. So I've got a telephone with me here, which is called a G-Mark CL100. So that's a G for golf ball. Off the top of my head, I can't think what G is in the please alphabet, but it's GEEMARC, and then it's CL100. And this is a very simple phone, which I'm not going to show because it's still plugged into the wall, I've just realised. But basically it has large print buttons, so that they're clear to see what buttons are on there. It's a wired phone, so it's not not wireless. And that's another thing to remember as well, is if it's wired or corded, rather, that's the word I'm looking for. If it's a corded phone. Yep.
Just to say, I'm showing, sorry to cut you off again, I'm showing the phone as well, because I've got one just right by my side. So as I can demonstrate it as you talk about it.
Yeah. So Tim's got the phone there. So it's got large buttons with big symbols on, and I believe the number 5 is tactile, so you can navigate your way around the keypad with that. It's got a lot of features as well. So it's got memory buttons, so you don't have to remember the numbers all the time. You can just press that one button and it will ring the number that's been preset in there. And the key thing about this phone is it has 2 very important features, or rather 3 important features. One is the amplification. So this phone can be increased in terms of volume that comes out. So that, I believe, includes both the ringing of the telephone, but also the volume of the speech coming through the phone. So you can have it amplified. You can then also adjust the volume as well, even when it's amplified, because it might be too loud or it might not be loud enough. You just need to turn it up a little bit more. That's quite an important feature to have. But the most important feature to have, and the one that people don't realize is important, is the fact that you can adjust the tone. So you can adjust the sort of frequency of the voice. So if you struggle to hear high frequency sounds, you can change it so it produces more low frequency sounds, or vice versa. This feature is quite important because it's not always to do with the level of the sound. It's more to do with the tone of the person's voice that you're listening to. So this is something that we would advise our members to play around with and get this phone. This one is, you can, they're quite common, and they're sort of one of the more preferred choice of phone, just because the quality of the sound is quite good with them, and that they're quite simple to use as well. You can get those from various places online. I'm not sure if you can get them at places like Argos or things like that, but you can get them online, and we could certainly provide that information. The other feature on that phone, which I think is on that phone, is that you can have it so it connects to the loop setting or T setting on an individual's hearing aid. So this is the next thing that I'm going to talk about. So hearing aids are fantastic. I know that because I'm actually deaf myself. I was born deaf, and I've had hearing aids all my life, and they're the only reason that I'm able to sort of talk. And you know, I'm not who I am without my hearing aids. But they're very, very important. But they don't cure my hearing loss. I still need some assistance with certain things. And one of those is to have a loop setting on my hearing aid. And it's basically just like a different setting that I can change the hearing aid to, and it will connect to other devices. So round my neck at the moment, I've got a wire that's attached to a little box, which is then plugged into the laptop speakers. And so I'm listening to what all of you are saying and what Tim's saying through this wire. So it's like headphones, but it's a wire instead. And the wire is a telecoil wire, and basically it emits sounds directly into my hearing aid, and it's picked up through my hearing aid on this particular setting. These are really useful. They're often found in post offices and banks and places like that, so that you can hear the person that you're trying to listen to. So it essentially tries to cut out all of the background noise, and you're only listening to what you are switched on to. The loop systems are becoming quite more common because they are quite useful. So on that telephone, there is a loop setting. So if the amplification doesn't work, or the tone adjustment doesn't work, you can change it so that it goes through the loop system on your hearing aid, and that can help as well. But it doesn't just stop there with loop systems. They can be used for quite a lot of things. So as I said, I've got them as a headphone for this laptop so that I can take part in meetings and phone calls and things like that. I've got a wired version with me, which is what I'm using at the moment. But you can also get a Bluetooth version, so that's wireless. You can connect that to your mobile phone, or if your laptop is Bluetooth enabled, you can connect it through there and listen that way. But I've also...
Can I interject there, Andrew? Because it's fantastic. Just sort of to break that down in terms of the technology and essentially how the audio sound is, because really what we're talking here, isn't it, about taking an audio sound and basically getting it to your hearing aids in an efficient and clean way that is going to enhance the clarity, quality of the sound, and to break out any background noise to try and shut it down. So the first way you mentioned with the G mark, when you put the wire in, essentially just explain a little bit more. That would go into the headphone socket, wouldn't it, of the computer? Into the headphone socket of your speakers, and the sound is traveling through the speakers into the neck loop, and in the neck, and then from the loop, it's looping to your hearing aids. That's kind of how that works, isn't it?
Yes, essentially, yeah. So you would just plug it into the same place that you would just plug your normal headphones in, but rather than it being headphone, it goes through the loop system. And the reason why it's better is if you're a hearing aid wearer, your hearing aids have been set up to match your hearing loss as close as it can. So it's amplifying the frequency that you can't hear and not amplifying the ones that you can hear. Okay, so it's working to your hearing loss. If you put in ordinary headphones, you risk damaging the frequencies that you can hear, the parts of the ear that are working, when you're turning the volume up too loud. So it's better to do something like this because it protects your hearing but amplifies the sound that you need to amplify it, and again cuts out the background noise that you don't need to hear. And so it's a lot more better for you in that aspect. So the two that I've spoken to you about there are, you just plug them into your audio jack into the headphones, or you can connect it by Bluetooth, and they can be used with, if you're making phone calls or you're listening to video groups and things like that. But if you're out and about, maybe in a cafe or something like that, those two headphones won't work because they need to be plugged into something. So what I've got with me is a device that's called a mini tech, and it's smaller than a mobile phone, or it's a personal listening device. And in the top of it, there is a microphone that you would fit in there, and you would just simply point that at the person who's talking, and the sound would be picked up by the microphone, and it would be sent through the headphone neck loop that you've got plugged into the top of it as well. And that way you're only really listening to the person that you're pointing it to. So it can improve the clarity of the sound, it can cut out the background noise, and you can adjust the volume. So if you need it to be a bit louder, you can choose to do that. This one is it's quite popular, and with this device as well, because of course all of our members have a visual impairment as well, is that this is quite tactile. So you can tell where the volume buttons are by the feeling of the tactile indications on it, and it can light up if that helps you to work out what the volume is, but it's all tactile buttons to help make that more accessible. There's a whole range of personal listening devices and neck loop devices and things like that out there, but there's only a few of them that are accessible for people when they've got a visual impairment as well. And so that's where we thought of come in and say, right, okay, so you need something to assist you with your hearing loss as well as your visual impairment. this device might work for you because it's tactile. You can tell what buttons you're pressing, and you can make the most use of that particular device. So that's where we sort of come in and try and support our members. Of course, a lot of it is trial and error, and playing around with it, but that's what we're here for as well. Loop system can also be used in your TV. So I used to have a job before where I was solely providing hearing equipment for people with hearing loss, as part of a contract with the local council. And the most common request we had was, I'm listening to the TV too loud and the neighbours are complaining and it's causing a bit of tension between the two of us. So one of the things that we could do was put a loop system and plug it into their TV. And then that way the sound would be transmitted directly from the TV to that individual's neck loop and then directly into their hearing aid. So no one else could hear what they were watching, okay? So that's quite a common device out there, and it's being used more and more and more as there's sort of greater understanding and knowledge about that kind of equipment. It's brilliant as well if you are living with someone else and their hearing loss is not as severe as yours. Because one of the most common complaints I had was, I'm watching the TV too loudly, my other half thinks it's too loud, but I can barely hear it. So we would go in, we would plug the loop system in, we would set it up so that the individual with the hearing loss could watch it at the volume that suited them and the tone that suited them, and then the partner or whoever it was they were living with could listen through the normal speakers and choose the volume that they wanted to, and that solved a lot of arguments, that I'm pleased to say. So I'm just so that's,
I've just got the products here, actually, Andrew, on that one. I've got a TV listener. So
yeah.
I'll just break into what you've said there, as you've explained it brilliantly without the fantastic memory you've got there. But I've just shown the very components parts. So if I just explain what I was showing there, Andrew was talking about a loop system that is plugging into the TV. Often these types of listeners, TV listeners, work with a couple of components. They have what we would refer to as a transmitter and what we refer to as a receiver, sort of quite common in the sort of radio wave technology jargon, I suppose, transmitter and receiver. So your transmitter, which if you're thinking of your TV system, which is your base unit, which is what Andrew was talking about, which is going to sort of capture the loop system, this is going to plug into the back of the TV. More often than not, it can connect with the modern TVs into the digital output ports. And then the idea is the sounds are going to travel from the back of the TV into this base unit, which is the transmitter, and then it's going to transmit through radio waves. If for those interesting, it's on a 2.4 standard gigahertz frequency wavelength, if you are really interested. It basically then is going to be captured by the receiver. And in this case, the receiver is this little fella here. It's like a little pocket container, really. And the idea is that connect to this receiver is an actual neck loop. So that you wear the neck loop, and then with your hearing aids on the T setting, the sound will actually loop from the neck loop into your hearing aids. So really, if you think about the travel of the sound, it's going from your base unit, which is your transmitter, into your receiver, into your neck loop, and then actually into your hearing aids. And as Andrew was sort of mentioning there as well, on the front of this receiver, well, it's quite nice actually. On the top of it, there's a little volume button there, so you can change the volume as well. So you can change your volume of your audio stream you're getting on the TV, which is totally independent from somebody perhaps your wife, your husband or partner, whoever is listening beside you, they can have it at their volume, you can have it at your volume. But what's really nice, particularly about this one that we brought along today, which is from a company called Sonymax, it's got a nice little sort of microphone button on the front, and I think Andrew mentioned that. It's really nice because, if you get nudged by your partner, say, well, go and get me a cup of tea or something, unfortunately you can't say, I can't hear you because I'm listening to the television, because they'll probably press the front button there, and what that does is it cuts out the TV sound and takes you into your general environment, and so that you can listen to what's around you as well. You click on it again and it can take you back to listen to the TV, so it's quite a nice little switch between those two audio channels, really.
Yeah, it's a very popular feature that I know with some of the couples that I've supported, because one of the downsides to the loop system is you are essentially only listening to what the loop system is plugged into, so it can mean that if you're watching the TV, you might not hear what's happening in the room or in your general surrounding. Whereas with that particular device, not only is it sort of more tactile than others, it has that big button at the front, which apparently, according to some people I've supported, you can hit with the end of a broomstick. So you don't even have to get out of your chair to get someone to go and get you a cup of tea. You can get a broom handle and hit the button from the other side of the room. Not something that I would personally advise, but that's what I've been told you can do. But it means that you can switch from listening to the TV and change it into the room setting, and again it will amplify and pick up the voices in the room, so it becomes like a microphone for the people in your room. One important thing to remember is that with the neck loop, they can cause issues for people who wear pacemakers. So it's important to be aware that if you have a pacemaker, you might not be able to have a neck loop. But there are alternatives to this in that you can have what's called a room loop, okay? And the same thing applies. So you'd have a transmitter, you'd have a box that's connected to the TV, and then out of the back of the box, the wire that you would wear around your neck, that wire actually comes out of the back of the box and runs all the way around the room. And so that actually means that as long as you're stood within that room, you can hear the TV wherever you're stood. So that means that the wire is away from your pacemaker and it wouldn't affect you. So that's just something to be aware of. Giving you a run.
Sorry, Andrew, I just cut you off again. Fantastic. Sorry. I was again just showing an example of the Sarabek model, which effectively would connect. You connect the copper wire to the back of this particular box, which would also be connected to the back of the TV, which is essentially the loop system that goes around the room. Just to say, yeah, you've got sort of volume and tone buttons on here as well, alluding to what Andrew was talking about earlier about changes in volume and changes on tonal frequencies. But another advantage, I guess, as well is it can be used by more than one person.
Yeah. And that again with the room loop, that will pick up if you've got someone else in your room with you. It will pick up what they're saying as well, so you can just use it for a conversation and not just for listening to the TV or the radio or whatever.
I've actually also found, Andrew, that people with limited mobility who find it struggle quite a bit with the personal neck loops.
Yes.
Find something like a room neck loop, because once it's set up, that's it. All they need to do is just put the hearing aids onto the T setting, and then they'll pick up the sound. Yeah.
So there's pros and cons to either, and we would have that conversation with our members and try and figure out what might work for them. What we do say is a lot of the time local authority would provide these kinds of devices, and not only would they do an assessment to check which one works for you, but they would also perhaps come out and fit that in for you as well. It does, however, depend on which local authority you live with and what services they provide. But we could look into that for you and decide what the best route for you to take for this. So that's a conversation that we can have with you and find out what works for you and what doesn't work and what suits you. The device that the room loop device that Tim was showing is it's slightly more expensive, but it has a lot more features to it. and one of them is that you can plug it into multiple devices. Some room loop systems, neck loop systems, you can only plug into one device. And if you want to, for example, the TV, but if you want to listen to the CD player, you have to unplug it and plug it into the CD player, which can be a bit of a faff. Whereas the one that Tim was showing, you can actually plug it both into the TV, your CD player, and whatever else you wanted to, and it would transmit that sound via the loop system to your hearing aid. All you would have to do is press a button to switch to whichever device it is that you're wanting to listen to. So, you know, there's quite a lot of flexibility with that kind of device to make things more accessible for our visually impaired and hearing impaired members. I am slightly conscious of time, so I think I'm going to wrap it up there unless Tim wants to say anything else. What I will say is that obviously we'll have some questions and answers after this, but if you have any further questions or you want to know more, please do just get in touch with us, and we're more than happy to have that conversation with you, and that's what we're here for. But I'll pass it back to Tim.
Fantastic, Andrew. Thank you so much indeed. I mean, you covered, you know, a lot of the equipment I've got here as well. That's what you're spoken about, which is absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. And yes, I mean, I think, as Andrew said, it's a very big subject. I mean, there are quite a lot of accessory products in the hearing field. And as Andrew was saying, it really is very much about what is it's always getting to the bottom of what's the actual requirement. What is it that somebody actually wants to achieve? And, you know, what is their level of hearing loss? And, you know, perhaps what type of hearing aids they might use, whether they've used loop systems in the past. All these type of factors factor in as to what is the sort of best solution in the end. Just maybe a couple of things to add finally. There are a couple of very good retailers in the country who are specialists in this type of field. One is called, which you might well be aware of, is Conovans. So we can give out the information and say we can post it to Andrew, but www.conovans.co.uk. And they now would probably, I think, are the sort of frontline leading retailer, because they've also associated themselves in terms of their product knowledge and product sales with what used to be the Action on Hearing, that has now been renamed to the RNID. They have a wealth of experience in this field, and they have some really good sections on their website. Actually, they can specialize in hearing aids themselves and particular brands of hearing aids. And there's a really nice section on the website, which their staff are very well versed in as well, which is knowing all the types of products and accessories that can actually work with the types of hearing aids that people might have, because it can be quite complicated, because on top of everything else we've spoken about, certain you know, products might work well with one hearing aid but might not work well with such another hearing aid. You know, so that's always something to be aware of. So Conovans is very good. Sarabec is another good one as well. www.sarabec.com. I think they're based up in the north. Conovans is in the south. And once again, they specialize in these type of products. They're very, very good with their sales support as well. Both companies. You know, I mean, we can obviously, you know, come back another time, talk more in depth if you wanted to about various bits and pieces, and we've given you a sort of slight overview today. You know, there are of course other areas as well that we look at or get questions on in the digital project. So, you know, what type of solutions are there actually available on your smartphone platforms or your tablet platforms? You know, we've alluded to things like neck loops and how they might link into a smartphone. You know, there is a whole area where, in actual fact, with certain hearing aids, you don't need a neck loop to work with those hearing aids, but you can actually connect devices directly to the hearing aids via Bluetooth technology without the need for that neck loop intermediary. They are, you know, digital hearing aids. They're probably not type of hearing aids you're going to get available to you on the NHS. There would probably be hearing aids that you would have to buy privately, and they can be quite expensive. But there are certainly, obviously, hearing aids that can certainly do that. we're talking about connecting those type of hearing aids directly to the audio source, so whether it be a phone or an MP3 player or a Wi-Fi system or what have you. So there's that whole area. There's also an area of apps, specialist apps. Are there particular apps that people with hearing impairments use to support them in their everyday, live. So there are quite common apps that we do actually end up advising people on, things like live captioning apps or live, so where you can actually you can it's sort of always have to get this right around the right way, speech to text. As you speak into your phone, it can text back very accurately what you're saying, and that can be very useful for hard of hearing people in certain situations if they can't be understood, particularly in this current situation. So there's
particularly with face mask, it's very, very useful to be able to have that, because as I say, I'm deaf, and I lip read a lot, and so it's been a nightmare trying to sort of understand what people are saying when they're wearing face masks. So a speech to text app on your phone is very, very useful, because it can convert that sound into written text, almost like sort of subtitles that you see on TV and stuff. So that's been really useful.
So if Andrew and I were having a conversation, and Andrew, which is trying to think of a scenario here, Andrew wanted to communicate to me, for example, but he was struggling to communicate with me. Maybe his speech wasn't clear enough to communicate, or maybe he was BSLing, but I don't BSL, or maybe he's got his face mask on. One of the things he could do on an app like this is bring it up, use the keyboard, type into the keyboard. It's a little bit like notes or anything, really, I suppose. On a bit like a word editor, but he could type into it and then the text would appear on the screen. But if I then wanted to reply to him, he could literally just click the dictation part of the live caption on the app, hold the phone up to me, I could speak into it, it would live caption, and then Andrew would be able to read that back on his screen. And that's kind of how a very simple interaction like that could work. So there's lots of other areas, but I think hopefully that gives you sort of an overview. I suppose there was one other was household alerting systems, but I think we'll probably leave that for another day.
I think you've talked yourself into coming back again. I think that's what's happening. I think we definitely get you guys. I tell you what, it has been really good today to get the base level of support, and there's lots of solutions out there, like there is for people with visual impairments and people who are blind. It's great to see so many different devices out there that can support people with their hearing needs, and the fact that we can go more in depth in it in the future as well sounds really exciting. So we'll definitely get you back on again. I think. Well, I know we will. But I think it's really, because I don't think many people. Not everybody knows about these types of things, like certainly the TV listening devices. I think that's a great idea. Not everybody who's maybe being assessed for equipment might not know about those types of devices, and it might be as you say, a purchase that you want to make yourself, just to help you. I know lots of people that wouldn't know about those devices, so maybe we'll have some questions for you guys in a second when I unmute everyone. But you're absolutely great, guys. We'd love to get you guys back on again, and it's been really informative. So shall we open the floodgates, as I always say on here? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow everyone, you can all unmute yourselves in a second. So I'm asking everybody to unmute now, so you're all able to unmute yourself if you so do wish to. You get a message on your screen asking you or inviting you to unmute if anybody wants to ask a question. So let's see. Let's ask all to unmute. There we go.
I'll ask a question, Andrew.
Hey, Jenny.
Hello. I'm Jenny. I'm one of our sight loss advisors, and I also work as part of Andrew's digital tech team. But I'm a member of Deafblind UK myself, and have been for a few years. The last support we had for the Merseyside area was Corinne, and then we've had one more person since then recently. Is there a local contact for the Sefton and Lancashire areas, or will everybody still now have to go through the main switchboard and be sorted from there?
Okay, so the way it's happened and the way we've changed is that we're all now national. Because I was the outreach officer for Yorkshire, but I now cover Yorkshire and the rest of the UK. So it does depend on what it is that you are inquiring about. So the best thing to do is to ring the helpline, and then they can pass that on to the relevant person. So if it is technology, it will be passed on to me and Tim. If it's partnership, networking, organisation to organisation work, that would come to me. If it's casework, so advice on guidance about services in your area, local authorities, that kind of thing, that would go to our casework team, and they would be able to support that process. So we've all changed roles and we've all changed areas. So there's not an individual officer to an individual region anymore. Could we felt in a way that was sort of a bit limiting in terms of we're only supporting people in that one area, whereas we are actually a national organisation, so we're now able to provide that service nationally. So yes, the best advice is to go through the helpline or email the info inbox, and then you'll get directed to the person then. And obviously at that point you've then got that direct contact with that individual anyway. So
brilliant, thank you.
Great
No
question,
worries.
that. Yeah, excellent, brilliant.
John?
You got any? Hiya, John. Hiya, John. Go for it, mate.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Tim and Andrew. Yes.
Good afternoon.
You've talked a lot about the loop system within the domestic domain, or even in the lecture theatre, maybe. What about portable loop systems? For instance, if we went to a restaurant, what the best sort of device where you can hear multiple people at the table?
Okay then, so yeah, so
I think, Andrew, isn't
it,
it?
that's a tricky one. So you've got obviously, as I said, loop systems in domestic situations, so at home. In public, you tend to have loop systems at post offices and banks built in. They may or may not work depending on where it is, but they have them out there. If you're going to a restaurant and you're with families and friends, there are devices out there which work on the same principle. So the one that I showed, which was the personal.
And what's the name of that equipment?
So this one is known as an Echo Mini Tech personal listener.
Echo Mini Tech.
Mini Tech personal listener. And so you can choose to have one microphone that goes in at the top, and you sort of point it to who you're wanting to listen to. Although I believe with this one you can buy another add-on which will plug into the same spot, but actually has like a little disc that you would place in the middle of the table, and that would pick up whoever's talking on that table. So you could use it in a conference setting or anything like that. That's sort of more personal, restaurants and things like that. There is another device out there called a Roger pen, and that is very, very popular for people accessing work. So it's a similar device, but it's shaped like a pen, so you can point at whoever's talking if you wanted to. But if you're in a meeting, there's quite a few add-ons that you can buy, so that if you're in a conference, you can have it so it's connected to the microphone system that they're using, or you can have it so that you've got a small device that you place in the middle of the table, and whoever's talking on that table voice will be picked up. But again, it does depend on sort of the individual and what their needs are, because it sometimes can work, or there's sometimes too much background noise and stuff like that. But there are quite a few personal listening devices out there. So you can have a look on Con Evans or Sarah Beck and see what devices they have.
Can I, Andrew, can I ask a question? Can the the Roger pen, for example, and these types of personal listening devices, can they be used quite discreetly? Or I have these, I've got this image of someone pointing a pen at me, but I would imagine that they're quite sensitive, so you could hold them at like chest level or waist level, and it'd still pick up quite a lot of direct noise. I would sound, I would imagine.
Yeah. So you can, the Roger pen is designed to be discreet. It's designed to sort of almost look like a pen. It's a bit
Okay.
bigger and a bit thicker than a pen, but it's designed to look like a pen, so you can just place it on the desk in front of you, and it has quite a big range. So that's how it works. With the mini tech, it's the same thing. You can just place it on the table, and just sort of have it next to you. You don't actually have to have it aimed at the person's face in order to listen to them.
I actually often put a pen on top of my ear.
That's what I was thinking.
I always do that with pens. Put it on my ear.
Doesn't work so well always if with your hearing aids in though, Andrew.
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't, would it? I guess it would.
You know what? That is a really great question. It's really funny you say that, because I've been in situations before where I picked up people's Roger pens thinking it's a pen, only to be followed by about 40 people saying.
And then when you realise it's not working, you throw it in the basket.
Yes.
Very expensive.
I've got another question then, because people with sight loss tend to use a lot of apps with audio on it.
Yeah.
But then the problem with that is when you're out and about, you don't want the world and his wife then hearing what that app is trying to tell you. So, we struggle. The hearing aids are out, so you put your bog standard headphones in or what have you. How is that overcome then, potentially, if you need to combine the two together?
Use your neck loop.
Yeah, you could use the neck loop that I'm using at the moment, because it just works on the same principle of the headphones, and
So no one else is going to hear that around you, is what I'm checking.
Yeah, no one else can hear that around you. The distance that this wire transmit is like, set hands distance. It's not that far. It's enough to go into that person's hearing aid when they wear it around their neck, so no one else can hear it, and it remains confidential because it remains on that neck loop and goes directly into that individual's hearing aid. And again, it allows a little bit more flexibility in terms of the volume and stuff, because you can, on this device, it's got the volume scroller at the bottom, so you can make it louder or quieter, and make it more accessible for you.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question, because I'm not hearing everything clearly?
Right, okay then. So was that because I've moved the microphone? Can you hear me now?
No, it was more my hearing as a problem. I'm not hearing all the words clearly. Did you say that it was your neck loop around your neck, that was connecting directly into your phone, that's making your conversation more private? Because everybody around me hears my conversations, which often should be discreet, but are unable to, because otherwise I'd not be able to hear it. So you're saying that this hearing aid loop that is carried around with you either via Bluetooth or connecting directly to the phone is what you're using?
Yes.
When you're out in public?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So they wouldn't hear what's coming through on the phone. They would only obviously hear what you're saying.
Right.
But if anything that's coming through the phone, if it's coming through the neck loop and going directly into the hearing aid, no one else will be able to hear it because it's going directly into your hearing aids.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, it's Julie here. I actually wear a Baha, and I couldn't quite hear Tim quite a lot of the time. And yes, I use some of the things that you mentioned, but it is very, very difficult, especially now. I have my sunglasses on. I actually have my hearing aid in a little bag around my neck, because by the time you've got your glasses on, now with your mask on and everything else, you've got so much clutter behind your ears. You've got, dare I say, ears like Prince Charles are sticking out like taxi
Yeah.
doors.
I can relate.
You know, it's horrendous.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
first thing that falls out is your hearing aid.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
mine's plugged into
Yeah.
my head actually. Mine's, because it's a Baha, it's actually plugged into my head, so I don't have that problem.
Yeah.
Quite so. But you know, it's all the technology you're carrying around with you. You're like Lara Croft.
Yes.
You can get a clip, can't you, for your hearing aids to sit with your glasses?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I the number of times I've thrown my hearing aids across the car park because they've come off with the face mask. It's been one too many times.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah, so there are certain things that you can do. So I believe there is a sort of like a wire that you can buy that attaches to the end of the hearing aid, and then you know how you used to have like your glasses on the chain, that kind of thing. You can do the same with hearing aids and stuff, but they can be uncomfortable. I mean, it's all right for me because I've had hearing aids all my life, so I don't know any difference, you know. But for people, it can take a lot to get used to having to wear hearing aids because they are not comfortable, and they can cause infections, or you just want to tear them out of your head, you know, and things like that. So I completely sympathize with that, because there are times when I do take them out because they are very, very annoying to have. So
I must
do know
admit the Baha is better though.
Right, yes, yeah, because that sits on the back of your head, doesn't it?
It
sort of.
screws into your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like having a filling done when you have it fitted.
It's quite similar to a cochlear implant then, isn't it?
Yeah.
In that sense.
I'm not quite, they said I'm only images away from having the cochlear implant.
Yeah, so it's similar, it's not quite the same, but
it's a similar thing. But because the one that I can't have it just, I've got to have the sort of extension wire and the hearing aid and everything. It's not, my hearing's too bad just to have the one plugged in.
Right.
But I'm right in saying, aren't I, Andrew, that in a lot of smartphones, or like we use the accessibility for sight, there's also a hearing side of accessibility.
There's a Baha.
Will help a lot as well.
There is a Baha one you can download. You've got to be able to use the thing, and I'm not really, you know, a bit of
but even if you've not got a Baha, if you've just got bog standard NHS hearing aids, then, you know, if you went into the settings like you would do for your visual side of things, there's a hearing side of things, and you can change the volume, you can change the tone, you can do various things. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I can't fault the NHS, to be honest, for hearing equipment. They've been extremely good.
Oh.
And I think if the need's there, they will fill it. Because I know a couple of friends went, I'm not going for an NHS one. They went privately, and they ended up going NHS in the end. I go to the Countess of Chester, which is a specialist hospital for Baha, and I've also been to over in Welsh Wales.
Yeah.
I just
oh God, which one was it? Yeah.
No, sorry, Tim, what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, just say, Jenny, I've just got my iPhone here.
Yeah.
And if I go into accessibility, so you've got all your vision stuff in there, and then all your physical and motor stuff for mobility. But then, yes, you've got a hearing section. So on here, I mean, if I just go into it, you know, the first option is hearing devices. And then it says MFI hearing devices. If I go into that,
I'm sorry, did you say MF or MS?
M for mother, F for Freddie,
Okay.
I for information. It actually stands for Made for iPhone.
Oh, I love it.
I'm imagining that type of device is going to be pretty expensive if it's made for iPhone.
It is. If you go onto the Apple website, you'll see a whole bunch of hearing aid manufacturers that have manufactured hearing aids that specifically can Bluetooth directly into Apple products. And
Wow.
they basically use Bluetooth, but it's not, they use the Bluetooth to do it. But in actual fact, it's not the standard Bluetooth. It's what we call a proprietorial Bluetooth. So in other words, it's Bluetooth specifically written between the hearing aid manufacturers and Apple, so only those hearing aids can connect directly to the device.
That's amazing.
What that means is that these hearing aids are quite expensive.
Yeah.
But
NHS buy them.
It's very much an exclusivity, isn't it? You know, between Apple and those manufacturers. You know.
Yeah.
Now, the way this has developed quite a lot over the years, because this has been about for quite a few years now. I believe there are ones now where you can connect. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can connect them directly to some hearing aids directly to Androids as well.
Yeah.
Where if you run across an obstacle where you can't actually, with some of these high level hearing aids, high level isn't quite the right word, but if you come across an obstacle where you can't connect them directly, sometimes the hearing aid manufacturers still allow you to bridge it with a loop system. Which is often, they're often get referred to as streamers in this sense, because what a streamer is, it's very similar to a neck loop, operates in a very similar way, but it's very specific to a specific hearing aid. So a particular Opticon hearing aid might have a specific neck loop streamer that can work with a phone. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you come across a hearing aid through one of the major manufacturers that can't directly connect to an Apple phone or an Android phone through a Bluetooth connection, it's probably likely, very likely, that they'll have a proprietorial streamer, a special type of neck loop made by that manufacturer for that hearing aid to allow you to make those connections.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Excellent stuff.
Yeah, a bit like the MyPilot for what's it? Oh,
yeah.
I'll just say, I'll just finally say as well about the pens. The Roger pens we were talking about, they are just conversational listeners. They, yes, as we were saying, there are many different types of conversational listeners, and this was what John's question was. And Conovan's Sarah Beck would very much sort of advise on this, but the Roger system is a radio aid system, again working with the idea of a transmitter and a receiver. So the Roger pen, which wouldn't be much bigger than that, is essentially a microphone transmitter.
Sorry, what are you holding up?
Like a pencil.
A standard size pencil.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm holding up a pencil. But the Roger pen is not too dissimilar in its size to that.
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Do you mind if I intercede for a second?
No, please do. Yeah.
Okay, great. Just quick. First of all, I want to say thank you so much. This has been an amazing way to start off my relationship with you guys, because this is exactly what I really needed to have, because I have both vision and hearing. So thank you very much, and I look forward to participating in many more groups. I have a quick question for Jenny. Jenny, did you sign me up for both Galloway's and Deafblind?
No, just Galloway's. You'll need to sign yourself up for Deafblind UK, but I will ring you tomorrow and we'll have that chat, because I need to talk to you about something else.
Brilliant. Okay. Now, I was having some hearing disabilities, as in I'm hearing things, but not necessarily all the words. So if you would not mind, guys, could you please spell out Conovan's and Sarabek and the Roger pen, just so I know that I have the spellings correct?
Sure.
Yeah.
So Conovan's, C.
Yep.
My phonetic descriptions aren't very good.
I tell you what, Tim, if you email it to us, I will give it to Jenny tomorrow and we can circulate it to the rest of the group.
As
well. That'll be a better.
That's brilliant. A quick question. I'm not sure if this is available or not. Now, I have received NHS hearing aids, and my hearing aids at the present moment are not hearing aid loop capable, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
would it be feasible to get the NHS to get me something
absolutely.
to do this? Okay, and somebody, I guess, would be able to assist me, because I think you said that there's the tech support and then there's the customer assistance area. I'm not sure whom and what number would be best. Numbers, if you can forward those on to Jenny as well, of who to contact, because I think that this is something that I didn't have any knowledge that you could have something to go into the back of the television, and that would be greatly helpful for me. And also between the computer, because I'll have music in the background but not able to hear on a computer or my phone. So I know I'm going to need to speak to somebody, because I hear sounds but I'm not hearing the words on my phone. So tech support definitely for that.
I will give this to Andrew just in 2 seconds, but this, and Andrew, this is very much a case, isn't it, of the type of hearing aids one has, what accessories can be connected
the limitation.
Yeah.
But it was also what I was going to say is it could also be a matter of the loop setting hasn't been programmed by the audiologist.
Yeah. So traditionally what used to happen was every hearing aid that was provided by the NHS would have the loop setting on them, because the hearing aids were not as good as they are now. Nowadays, they don't put the loop system on the hearing aid immediately, because the theory is hearing aids are a lot more better. You're not going to need the loop system, but you can, and you can ask for them to put the loop setting on them. And they should be able to do that for you. I can't see why they wouldn't, but they should be able to put that loop system onto your hearing aid for you. It does require you to either go to the audiologist and do it, or you can send your hearing aids in and then they can just add that program onto your hearing aid and then send them back to you. And then that way, what you do once you've got the loop setting on the hearing aid is any sort of loop setting device should then work with your hearing aid. But again, it does kind of depend on the brand of hearing aid that your NHS uses. So it's worth having that conversation with your audiologist and just saying, are there any devices that it can't use, or is it only specifically for certain devices? If you're unsure, you can give us a ring and we can have that conversation with you. And
what is the number that, if you can just give it to me right now, I can as well.
Yeah, so our helpline number is 0800 132 320.
That's brilliant, and thank you for whoever that was that had the question or a comment. I think it might have, I don't know if it was Tracy or Julie, about something that will attach to my glasses, because I do have a problem with my glasses and my hearing aids being able to use both, because I have only a small, tiny little ear, and one often falls out, or I have to take the glasses off.
Yeah,
so
I used to have a manager from a previous job who was deaf herself, and she said the biggest mistake she made when it came to wearing hearing aid and glasses was that she got the glasses that have really thick arms on them, and because it was the weight of those arms sitting on the back of her ears that was causing the problem. So she always advised, if you came across anyone who was wearing hearing aid and glasses, to go for glasses that have got like a thin arm on them, because then it's less pressure sitting on the back of your ears. But yeah, and they can be a bit of a nightmare having to wear both. But it is something to be aware of, how much your ears can manage.
That's right, yes.
Definitely. Have we got questions from anybody else?
Yes, it's David here. I've just got my hand up. You mentioned about telephones earlier on.
Yep.
Have you ever come across a telephone that will plug with a line out to connect it to the line in on your hi-fi amplifier? Because I'm just thinking with these conference calls, in some ways, it's sometimes nice if I could just hear the voice through the speakers, you know.
I am sure that there is potentially a device out there that does do that. That would require a little bit of research from me and Tim. I know that a lot of phones, even the one that I showed earlier, come with a loudspeaker option.
Yeah.
So that's actually on the phone themselves.
Well, I've got
Sometimes
that on my Doro already, my Doro cordless, and that has its uses because I've been able to carry on with a call in the kitchen, a long conference call, you know.
yeah.
And
Yeah, so they most phones have that, but sometimes they're not always the best. But I'm sure there would be a cable that you could buy that would plug it into other speakers, or even Bluetooth wireless speakers. I'm pretty sure I've done that in the past and connected phone through the Bluetooth speaker.
oh, right, domestic phone, right.
Yeah.
Because I know for one thing, when I was working for Action for Blind People, and we had this problem, as you've probably come across, where this was mainly in a work situation, which is similar. It's a similar analogy, really. The telephone industry likes to have its own way of dealing with sound output in terms of styles of sockets. You know,
Yeah, that is
where they used to have jaws in one ear and the computer in the other, you know, in those days. And that's why I'm asking, because I knew full well that the telephone industry, I've never yet seen a telephone with either a red and white line out or a 3.5mm line out.
this
3.5mm, isn't it? 3.5 for the
3.5.
telephone, yeah.
That's the standard.
I'm talking about the little tiny stereo jack, the little tiny one.
3.5.
Yeah.
Okay, for the American who's struggling with with metrics, how many inches is that approximately?
Yeah, you're on. Yeah, it's feet and inches in America. I noticed when I was.
I'm so sorry. I never have actually grown accustomed to the metric system.
Oh dear.
Does anybody know approximately the
can I just
compare it to the length on their fingers or arms to give me an idea of how long it is?
It's about
fingernail, I'd say, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Bigger than a matchstick.
Yeah.
Bigger than a matchstick, but don't try sticking a matchstick in, you might get
Getting really technical here today, aren't we?
What I do with my phone.
To everybody's faces. I mean, I really need a good laugh, so I'm glad that I could provide some humor to everybody.
No worries, thank you for that. The telephone that I've got here in my hand at the moment, which was the G-Mark telephone that I spoke about earlier.
Oh, how do you spell How do you spell that? Is that GEEMARC and then CL100?
Yeah, perfect, spot on.
We'll give that to Jenny. Yeah, we'll give that.
Yeah, we'll email that. Yeah, that's got a port or hole or whatever on the back of it where you can plug in either headphone or a speakers or anything like that.
That would be ideal. Yeah, I could take the headphones to that and connect it to the Marantz amplifier. Yeah.
Can I just
yes, Andrew has a different one to me, and it does have that on there. And in actual fact, you could even connect. You might need to get an adapter to what is it going from 3.5mm to 2.5mm.
Oh, right.
Because that might be a 2.5mm port, not a 3.5mm. So you'd have to get a male to female or female to male. I can never quite get it around the right way.
Yeah, L or radio spares or CPC would have something like that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, or I mean,
I've got to get some bits and pieces anyway. The other question, there's 2 or 3 questions I needed to ask you.
Yeah.
The next one is not really so much to do with technology, but it is to do with deaf and blindness, because as you know, rubella, that's what you end up with, like me, deaf and blind, anybody born rubella. And I have a fear. Now, I've not had any experience of it yet, but I just fear it as the younger doctors come in. The older doctors retire and the younger doctors come in. I'm talking about GPs, hospital workers, any doctor for that matter. I'm very concerned that they won't be clued up on what anybody with rubella is left with, because, you know, there's an awful lot of underlying medical conditions like heart, and some people have diabetes, some people don't, this kind of thing. You can end up, and you know, and I'm just a bit concerned that they won't know what to do with you because they don't know what underlying medical conditions go with rubella.
Yeah. So in answer to that, the other part of my job, which is specifically the deafblind awareness session, is aimed at sort of providing that information to doctors and GP practices and things like that. It doesn't always go into the sort of medical depth because we're not medical professions. I
know. This is why I said, why I warned you first. It wasn't exactly a medical question, but I just wanted it starting to be addressed for the younger doctors coming in now, because we're not going to get any more people born rubella now because they've been doing the vaccinations for it since the 1960s, according to my GP. So we shouldn't be having any babies born. Well, not in the third world. Of technology like we have. And the drugs.
So we part of my deafblind awareness role is to raise awareness of some of these conditions, and particularly sort of, you know, as you say, rubella, because as you say, there's not many, there shouldn't be any new cases coming through, but there is still a large percentage of the population that may have rubella as their cause of their sight and hearing loss, along with some of the other medical conditions as well. So that is something that we do as part of the deafblind awareness session, to do that. So we have two. We have one which I provide, which is sort of a free 1.5 hour session to really sort of highlight the impacts of deafblindness and sort of to give an introductory of it to certain organisations. But if it's doctors and GPs, we have further training and development of deafblindness and deafblindness with complex needs. The rubella would sort of fall under that training in terms of providing that information to the medical practitioners and so forth. But yeah, it's really good point that actually. So thank you for raising that.
Because there's lots of other health, some medical conditions don't materialise till later on. As a rubella person gets older, like I am, and I know other people who have, you know, other disability groups I've been involved in the past, you know, they're getting older and they'll develop other conditions which are tied to being rubella. Some don't materialise till you get older, you know.
So it is something that we're looking at. The other condition is Usher syndrome.
Which syndrome?
Usher.
Because that might rubella might get overshadowed, you see, because of all this talk about ushers.
So Usher syndrome, which is US for sugar, HER, is a condition that where the individual would lose both sight and hearing loss, and it's a sort of tunnel vision kind of vision loss, and usually a profound level of hearing loss, and that at the moment is sort of expanding. They're learning a lot about ushers, because they've found 2 different types of ushers in the last 20 years, you know. So it's an expanding field of research. It's a lot bigger than they originally realized. When I was born, without revealing my age too much, but about 27 years ago, I had there was only about 1 type of Usher syndrome, but now they've worked out that there's about 4, potentially 6 types of Ushers. So the research for that is ongoing. But as you say, there is a chance that the rubella might be overshadowed. But we always, whenever we do the deafblind awareness session, we always mention that rubella is a potential cause, and it's something that needs to be reminded and be aware of. You know, so we certainly look at that.
Thanks for that, David. Really good questions there, David.
Can I just say thank you very much, David, for that? Because I have an older sibling who had rubella, and it left him deaf. You know, when he had it as a young child, and he would be coming of the age, and not one who would think that the things that he's experiencing would be related to that, or even to know that, you know, some of the deafness could be assisted. So this is information that really can help somebody, and for everybody, thanks a lot.
Thanks for joining.
You know, use this.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much for joining. Tim and Andrew, I think we've kept you. We're going to have to. I think we're definitely going to get you back again, and we could definitely look at some more of the apps and things and things like that. I think that would be brilliant if we could do that. And we've, I think I always warn everybody when you come on the Tech Talk at 3 that you may be on a little bit longer than advertised, but that's all good. It's all really relevant. Yeah, we'll wrap. That's a wrap, I think, for today. And I want to thank Tim, Tim Locke, and Andrew Barnes.
Thank you both. Thank you both.
Brilliant.
I look forward to
Thank
seeing
you both.
later.
Thank you.